Uh.
A slight technical delay will not persuade us from having round 2 of the Simrigs Sprint Series. Hello everybody, I want to welcome you to tonight's broadcast. My name is Nick Moan, and we appreciate your patience here at the OOR. I know things were a little bit tricky, but got everything sorted out. It's the guys in charge of making sure our lovely little server is moved over. A little forgetful, but, you know, some contact here and there is going to make things a little bit easier. But, yeah, we are here in free practice at the moment. We're going to have a shortened free practice just so we can get on schedule here. Unfortunately, Simon will not be joining me in the booth tonight. He is going to be a little bit busy this evening, but as always, you let me know. So that's all that really matters. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Hope everybody's day has been stellar as we get ready for a Thursday night of action. We are here in qualifying pretty much right away, wasting no time at all. But it is nice and sunny here in Hungary. Perfect timing, I think, for the F1 season. If you want my opinion on it, what a great race we had there. Of course, Hamilton with that surprise pole position, but I guess you could say that the results were not all too surprising, but still a great race nonetheless. Hopefully everyone's fantasy teams were doing good after that. if you've got one of those. But yeah, welcoming everybody into the chat. Charles Phillips on track now. He'll be leading us around the circuit for what is going to be 3.4 kilometers of action. And we'll be seeing what kind of lap times he can put up. Right behind them is Julian in the 88. So while we're here now, go over results from last week. It was a big jumbled mess when we had all these different drivers all over the place. We had Partez taking the race win over Cuthbert, and Abelstead weaseling his way onto the third step of the podium. In the Pro-Am category, of course, Partez and Abelstead, they're 1 and 3, makes them 1 and 2 in their category. And then it was Lemos, one of the new drivers here in the OOR, getting third position for the Pro-Am category. Then down to amateurs, it was Dorn who finished 5th place overall. Dorn has made some huge strides here in European Sprint, and hopefully we see him continue that trend well into this season and maybe possibly the next. Then it was Williams and Florentino joining on those second and third rungs. And then because of the amount of new drivers we have a lot of silver rated guys who are still looking for classification. So for the first time, and I think forever, I've actually have the results for the silver ratings, and that was Naderpel, Izertsky's and Louis that picked up the wins there, or picked up the top 3 spots in their selective categories. But Phillips right now out on the circuit, and while we wait for his lap times to come in, of course, we want to welcome in some of the newer drivers. Daniel Reschfeld from the greatest of Britons, racing for Aston Martin in that 101 Azure racing car. Beautiful little, not quite a gradient, but it certainly rolls like it. Someone who does have experience in the Aston, very solid little car, so glad to have him. Of course, in the amateur class, another driver that has been added to the roster is this man right here, Tim Oteo from Germany. 47 is the car adorned, or is the number adorned upon his car, and a nice pink livery in the pro class. So we'll see just where he ends up by the end of it all. And then the final new name here is Finn Fedke, also from Germany. 781 Ferrari, that's the Evo 2, that's the newer car added into the game not too long ago. Also uncategorized, so we'll have to see where he ends up, where the powers that be put him. But we rejoin Charles Phillips right now for the end of his qualifying lap, just now going through the final few corners here at Hungaroring. And I think that we should be seeing a solid baseline. I agree with Notbone. Some people are hitting these 42s. Very difficult to do. But for some, it's almost second nature, it feels like, when they get everything lined up and squared away. So Phillips starts us off a 47.747. That is the time to beat. Immediately bested by Partez. Looking to make it 2 wins in a row here. A 145 is immediately usurped by Krebs, a 45.27.2. There's Dorn there into the top 3. Him and Krebs, I believe, running the exact same livery. They are. So we'll see what the possible teammates can do here. Who else? Julian's coming across the line. Oh, actually, looks like he had a bit of an invalid lap, so it doesn't count. We'll check in here. Daniel Rechfeld having some issues, it looks like, so he's got he's on his out lap right now. So there are some drivers that have completed a full lap, but just went off the circuit, so they'll have to, I'll get back out there, try it again, but currently it's just your top 5 set: Krebs, Cairns, Partez, Dorn, and Phillips. And there's Fedke just now crossing the line, 6th place for now, a 148.51. Should be seeing him turn up in no time at all. See what he brings to the table. Let's look at Timoteo. Again, that new face here in the European scene as he crosses the line. Where is that going to put him? 5th overall, a 146.79. So where he will plant the flag, and it's up to him to either defend it or bring it further up the grid. As I say that, Naderpel from the Netherlands, in the meantime, very jumpy over the curbs there, runs into 6th, and it's Florindo that also moves up into that 5th position. So the German already bopped down 2 spots with that top 5. Whoa, it's Julian right now. Makes it pole position 44.49. Partez is a 44.63. So it looks like we're already having a battle right now for these top spots. There's Phillips there, who is down in position number 10 at the moment, holding up a little bit of traffic. You saw Julian just back out of that one. The Mexican driver said, I'm all set. Same with Partez. Looks like he's probably going to go back to the pits. Yep, maybe some setup adjustments. Getting back out there. You'll notice that with these drivers, if you watch for long enough, you will be seeing these guys going back into the pit lane and making some minor adjustments and then heading back out there, really dialing in how they want to run this car for the race. Jonathan sailing right now from, what is this, Sweden, as we see Brun go across the line 14th with a 50.03. Cuthbert there is 6th, Louis in 6th. Izertskis goes up into 7th position. So these times are starting to come in. We're going to see where the Swede comes out. Is it going to be somewhere magical? Could we be seeing a very solid lap? Currently, though, he has crossed over behind Brun, so this will be his starting position. 15th. And it didn't even count, so he went offline. So maybe there is some extra time there for the Swede to figure out. Terry Williams yet to set a lap time at the moment. Had a pretty late start. Does cross the line just now, so he only gets 13th overall, a 47.09. So what he has to show for that effort. Should be seeing him continue to move up the ladder here. Lemos just a few seconds prior crossed the line, a 47.53 for him, only enough for P14. But with just about 4.5 minutes to go here, we'll see what happens. Daniel Reschfeld, though, throws his hat into the ring. 14th position for him now. It's a 47.44. So you got to start somewhere, and that's where he is going to find himself. Still plenty of time to get a few more laps in. And I was just about to click on one of the drivers. It was Simone Ippolito, who has gone 4th overall. Just under 3/10, and Asmar, a very surprising run there, is 5 thousandths behind your pole sitter, which is this man right here, Alain Julian. So we'll see. The Delta, though, looking very good for the 88. So we'll see where he pops out in all of this. We'll rejoin Soling. The only driver yet to set a lap time here. He is just heading through the final chicane down to those last couple of corners. Not quite certain where he's going to end up. We're going to see, though, if he can find a little bit of space above Brun or if he'll be starting behind the Audi. You can see the split times, though, just up into the top 6 is all within 4/10 of each other. So that's going to be a very competitive group. And as I say that, Lemos pops up. Cuthbert goes into the top 6. But it's really those top 2 you're going to be looking for. And sailing again does not set a valid lap. But this man right here is on a massive improvement of 44.14. That is 4/10 exactly ahead of your number 2. That's this man right here in the 44 McLaren. So it looks like it'll be more of the second to, I'd say, maybe 6 that could be competitive, depending on how these deltas line up. This lap has been abandoned. Izertskis goes into the top 5 from 14th with that 45.57, making a mark here. Still has not been classified. So he is looking for, well, a nice little color next to his name. Victor Brun from Denmark. Around that final corner, we'll see where he decides to pop out. Has a pretty solid improvement, but will it be enough to overtake Fedka? It will not be, but it's actually an invalid lap, so he was a full second ahead. If that run stuck, the 48.112, the 48.12, excuse me, it would not have been enough to overtake Fedka. It would have been about, almost half a second off. So the pace is there, but it's just about finding those little extra bits and just stitching it together, keeping it within the lines. Very important. Of course, Ryan Cuthbert crosses the line, goes P2. 44.53 for the Scotsman. So he's closed that gap up, 7 thousandths ahead of Asmar there in position number 3. Those two could be coming to blows by the end of the race or very early on, depending on how everything pans out. Of course, that turn 1, we've seen what can happen there. We've seen it in F1, of course, when certain drivers have things to do. Rochfeld right now into the pit lane. And I think this is going to be it for the Briton. He does not have enough time to get through the pit lane and start another flying lap. So he is down position 17, or 17 at the moment. Lemos in 8th. There's a couple of drivers threatening for that 8th place position. However, nobody is on an improvement right now. Deltas are looking even or just 0.1 back. A couple of 0.1s forward, but nothing really. A lot of these drivers still coming around. We'll go with Partez. That's not Partez. That's Partez. Wrong guy. My apologies. I was also told we'll do this during the grid walk after we get through everything. Charles Phillips told me to look at the roof of his car, so I'll have to do that before the end of our grid walk. But Partez, one of the masters here in the OOR, powers to the outside. Ooh, gets a little bit loose. And he does go second, quarter of a second back, and he has one final shot at this. So we're going to leave him be. We're going to let him do his thing. See what the man is cooking in the kitchen right now. Charles Phillips, oh, just gets loose. And he's going to just park it up, and that is it. He was on a very solid improvement, but I guess it just wasn't meant to be. Terry Williams down in 16th position. Has a few tenths. Could overtake Oteo for 15th, possibly 14th. And he does just skirt around the German by a little bit. It's going to be enough, though. It's all he wants. 15th would be a very solid start. No one behind him is improving at the moment. Who is on improvement right now is Fabian Krebs. 5th for him right now. Crosses the line, goes P2 ahead of Partez, who is still on his final flying lap. We'll see where he ends up. He is very, very happy about that for P2, but don't celebrate too early, my friend. That could be taken away from you rather quickly. Iwan Cairns right now just holding within that top 10, and as he does cross the line, it's going to be 6th. For the man from Scotland, a very solid improvement. Asmar goes on to pole position. A 44.002. Almost into the 43s. That's a statement right at the end of qualifying. Because I don't care what type of times you're putting in. I can do it better. Ricky Liu from Hong Kong is 12th. And he is going to stay 12th. It does improve, though. A 45.94 is going to be enough for him to be happy. Partez abandons his lap. He was 3 tenths up, but you wonder maybe, was he a little bit off the circuit? So that is his qualifying done and dusted. Simone Ippolito, I apologize for your livery not loading, but the Italian goes 5th for this race. Ladies and gentlemen, 20 cars on the grid, and we are going to be getting ready here. And we'll do, of course, my favorite thing for those of you that know me, and that is going to be the grid walk, seeing all these beautiful liveries that these drivers have made for us here in the OOR. A lot of creativity, and again, we have to look towards Charles Phillips, whew, that's weird, for a special rooftop design, but keep these 20 in mind. There is going to be a pretty significant amount of time before we reach that checkered flag. But it is Nasser Asmar right now who is on pole position almost into the 43s. You wonder if maybe we'll see that during the race. Alan Julian from Mexico joins him on that first row of the grid. A very solid start there for him for the number 88. Then it's Fabian Krebs and Partez who are sitting 3rd and 4th. Partez could have made pole position, but I guess it just wasn't meant to be. So he has some work to do if he wants to make it 2 in a row here. Simone Ippolito lines up 5th place on the grid. And then it's Cuthbert and Cairns 6th and 7th. A very good start for both of them. Ricardo Florindo has Bruno Lemos, both Portuguese drivers, lining up 8th and 9th position. And then it is going to be Christian Dorn who does round out the top 10, looking to see how much further he can move up the grid by the end of the race. Of course, he did have that 5th place last week at Silverstone. So do we see a return to form, or is it not meant to be? Well, that's going to be a question that only the race can answer. It's Zerskis and Liu lining us up 11th and 12th, that 6th row of the grid. Naderpel and Phillips make it 13 and 14. Then it's Williams, Oteo, Rochefeld, Fedka, Brun, and Sailing, who are rounding out the rest of that grid, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And of course, there is no safety car. Unfortunately, that makes me a little bit sad. But, you know, sometimes that just isn't meant to be. If anybody's looking to become the safety car driver for EU or NA, well, we'd be more than happy to have you. I don't know who you'd contact, but you'd probably contact somebody. And as we get ready for the rest of this race to start, take one quick shout out to Simrigs for sponsoring Season 14 of the Sprint Series out of Melbourne, Australia. This sim racing supplier's got everything you need if you want to upgrade your rig or maybe add a couple of goodies to it. If you're from, of course, Australia and New Zealand, well, you guys are all set. And if you're like me and you happen to live in the United States, or maybe you're like one of our drivers here on the grid and you are from those lovely European nations, or in some cases Lou, who is from Hong Kong, well, if you send him an email, they'd be more than happy to do some business with you. And of course, if you're an OR Patreon member, you are getting 5% off your in-store purchases. Highly recommend you take advantage of that because, well, sim racing equipment, not cheap by any means, but ladies and gentlemen, we are on track here. We have just now pulled away, and I was told again to look at the top of Phillips's car. We'll see what he has in store for us. I didn't quite get a good look. Obviously, the angle was weird. We've got some anime. Very, very tasteful. We enjoy that kind of stuff. Low quality, I apologize. But even though it's an all-white livery, it still looks pretty good. Let's take a look. What do we got? We got Highway Star, Express, Shift Down, Power Max, and Max Speed, of course. Red Suns, the OR, and the Simrigs logo. It's always nice to see what these drivers put on their cars. Some of them will put little Easter eggs as a way to, you know, give us something a little bit more to search for. But we are just heading through the next few corners here. This right-hander is going to be one of the spots to watch. Very fast, right over the inside. If you want to really risk it, really push that time. Easier said than done, of course, but for some of these guys, it is child's play all the same. And then you come up the hill, blind left. This is where we may be seeing a lot of problems throughout the race, especially as someone's getting chased down. We could be seeing some mistakes being made, and especially here, that inside corner is very easy to spin out on, and through the chicane, you can send it a little too hard. And, well, if you've gone over the inside of the chicane a little too much, you know how much air you can get. So hopefully none of these drivers follow that same sort of fate. Through the last few chicanes, always fun to get wrong. As someone who has done it quite frequently, I can confirm that it does not feel good. But we do have this first race, 30 minutes on the clock. This will set us up for race number 2. I may have been right in my assumption earlier that it is 70, but on the website it says 60. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we're lined up 2 by 2 here as we head through the final set of corners. Drivers are going to be told to close up the gaps. There was a couple of messages being exchanged in the drivers chat after last week's race, so penalties could be awarded. I say awarded, of course you don't want them awarded. If you leave too big of a space, you're looking at 1 car length at most, maybe a car length and a half. But Asmar on pole has quite a long gap between Julian, Partes, Krebs, Ippolito, Cuthbert, Cairns, Florindo, Lemos, Dorn. That's your top 10. It's Zerskis, Liu, Naderpal, Phillips, Williams, Oteo, Fedka, Rochefeld, Brun, Saling, and we're green here at the Hungaroring. And look at the start there from Krebs, almost going into the back there of your pole sitter. Down to turn number 1, we've got a car spearing off to the side of the track, almost collects somebody else in all of that, but everybody else, all 19 cars, make it through turn number 1 quite nicely. You did just see the number 88 go down the inside on your pole sitter, 3 wide right now. Christian Dorn sitting in the middle, just up ahead. It's the 2 McLarens there who go side by side right now. There's more chaos in the background as everybody starts getting together. That was a massive bit of error on everybody's part, but the big story out of that back half is Salling picking up position 13. Charles Phillips off the track. What is happening? It's just all falling apart here at the Hungaroring. Everybody's having problems left, right, and center, but the race continues on. Right now, though, the top spot is held by Julian, who has made out like a demon, has not even looked back. He got around the pole center, hasn't even considered his existence. And same with Partez, who does gain another position here at the start of the race. You can see everybody trailing behind. Asmar has had some problems, has actually gotten around. Looks like things have not updated. So it is going to be Partez down there, P3, Krebs in P4. I thought for a second Christian Dorn was going for something, but it looked like it wasn't to be. So that driver we saw at the start that had a lot of problems, it looked like it was Fedka was one of them. It was Louis that was. You can see, look at the damage on the front end. That car, the glass is scratched to no end at all. We're gonna see, look at the steering, it's cranked to the right, and the car is moving straight. That is immense damage straight into the wall for the Hong Kong driver. So he has to pit. There is not going to be a chance that he is going to be posing much of a threat in this race, unfortunately. But that is how the cookie is going to crumble. But after one lap, ladies and gentlemen, Julian on top with Asmar getting swapped around with the Mexican driver. Then it's Partez, Krebs, Ippolito, Cairns, Cuthbert, Lemos, Dorn, and Izerski's in your top 10. Florindo starts us off in 11th position, but very close, of course, to the driver ahead. And then it is Sailing, Williams, Bruin, Nederpeld, Rachfeld, Phillips, Oteo, and Fedka. Of course, Louis in the pits there, down in position number 20. But Phillips, a horrible start for him, was lucky to get away without too much of a problem. Oh, it's actually Rachfeld that falls way down to position 17, so the British driver has some work to do. He is keeping it close, though, to Phillips, which is good news for him, and especially this pack leading up. If he gets lucky, maybe the Porsche will be held up, and that will give him a chance at an overtake. But this seems to be where we're going to be sitting. It's Naderpel, Brunin just up ahead. Fairly certain that is Williams in the Ferrari. And as quickly as it looked like Rutschfeld was having a shot at a position, it all falls apart. Right now, Bruin goes wide. And on the inside, you do see Naderpel. Does he go for the move down the inside? No, but it does push the Audi way off his line. Not only does that invite himself through, but that does give Charles Phillips a chance to gain an extra position. The two German manufacturers colliding side by side. It's a little bit of an awkward switchback. Another touch coming out there from the Croatian. You wonder how is that going to go over. Hopefully it doesn't go too poorly for either driver. And Rachfeld just, again, despite all of that, doesn't get much of anything. We rejoin the two teammates, Cairns and Cuthbert, both from Bra Racing right now, battling it out for position number 6. And just behind them is Christian Dorn, so 3 McLarens right now have a shot at taking this 6th spot. But it is going to take some time before we see exactly who gains the most from that. Naderpel right now. Oh, the inside there for Salling. Holds on to 14th. A brave bit of driving there. Both of those guys going side by side. And you can see the Lamborghini of Oteo going very wide through the corner, up and over the blind left. Everybody gets it right. The inside line, though, just belongs to the Dutchman. And there is going to be another touch. Salling gets muscled out of the way. And Charles Phillips, I don't know what happened there. I don't know, maybe he locked up or something, but he is dropping a couple positions. That does push Bruin into 15th, but it is not going to be easy for him to hold on to that, especially given how great Charles is as a driver. Looks down the inside. The door, unfortunately, was cracked open, but not wide enough to weasel that Porsche on through. So for right now, he's going to have to wait for another shot at the position. We're going to go back up front right now. Partez chasing down the pole sitter. You can see how much of a run he's getting. Slightly different lines from these guys. Shows you just how different these cars handle, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are. Min-maxing both of those. But they are very close to the leader. Just a few tenths between themselves and that number 88 just up ahead. Partez everything he's got there to try and overtake. It hasn't really happened. Cairns right now with a huge error. Cuthbert, you saw streaming ahead. Not a change for position, but definitely losing a fair bit of time. Side by side right now. We go down to turn number 1. It's sailing on the inside. Phillips on the outside, but the move is done before the corner. But you wonder... Oh, I thought for a minute Phillips was just spooked off of his line. But it appears as though there is no ghost busting to be done. And he streams away quite comfortably, sailing, holding on as much as he can. Brun gets an excellent run there, side by side for a moment over the inside. The BMW almost loses it, goes one way, goes back the other. Everybody's starting to scramble for positions. We have a four-way fight. There's a tap there from the British driver onto the Audi of Brun, spins himself out. And that is going to be all sorts of problems there. We're going to go overhead. They're selling in the background. There's a Teo. Tries to go down the inside. Oh my goodness. It looks like, it looked like maybe Rochfeld completely forgot to brake. Goes into the back of Brun and then just hits the side of Phillips. And if we look on the cockpit cam, you can see the front glass scratched a little bit. I think the hood has some damage applied to it. But he has carried on. Down in position 18. They're sailing just behind. And that appears to be Lou, but that is a lap down. So even if he were to overtake, it wouldn't mean much. But the thing is, if he can get the overtake done, well, he could possibly unlap himself. Of course, that is something that drivers have to discuss. We've had it happen where faster drivers will ask the car ahead if they can pass, and generally speaking, if that car behind is quite rapid, then they'll be more than happy to let that guy through. But again, that's completely up to driver discretion. We check here, 11th position, Florindo, just as I was about to say, has a chance at Ozerski's position 10. He does not get the corner quite right, so he falls back into line, and he's, well, just going to continue on. Ooh, little slide there from Cairns. Excellent save. That McLaren pretty murderous if you treat her incorrectly. Whoa, look at that. Look at Lemos. What are those lines? Just through the chicane. Clips both apexes beautifully. Tries to go down the inside, but finds himself on the outside for the subsequent corner. Cairns holding on to that position by the skin of his teeth. Christian Dorn right now in 9th, had a shot at 8th, but has to back up. Have a double yellow on the track. I didn't quite see who that was, but it has been cleared. All these drivers running very wide through the corner. Well, I guess if one person's going to run wide, everyone else might join the party, because why not? What's stopping you, really? But still, Christian Dorn waits in the shadows, doesn't want to try it. Phillips getting around that Naderpal. Whoa! Oh, is that the leader? No way. Wait, is that the leader? That was Julian that got spun out. What happened there? What is he doing? What in the world? He must have spun out at some point and then couldn't recover the car. And then what happens here? Oh, he just gets on the curb and I think a little bit too much throttle. And from first all the way down to 13th position, this error costing the Mexican greatly. And it looks like he has some side damage, so it looks like he may have had a tap from somebody at some point. Didn't quite see who it was, but that might be the reason why he was having so much trouble turning around. But we cannot dwell on that for too long, because right now Bruno Lemos from Portugal continues to lay the pressure on nice and thick for Cairns. Equal Machinery saying, hey man, if you can do it, so can I. And you're not going to get away that easily. Look, 6th down to 11th is all McLarens. And then 1 and 3 belong to the British manufacturer. Krebs, though, is in the lead of the race. Gifted over. There's a Teo going down the inside right now of Brun for 15th. Is there going to be a retaliatory strike from the Audi through the chicane? No, there is not. That is not going to work. And there is Fedka as well. Ooh, little loose there for him. Gets it cleaned up, though. Continues on. But this race, despite being very short, has had a lot of chaos, and you almost wonder, how close does that or mirror your pub lobbies? I'm sure we've all had those where we start like 12th on the grid and there's some chaos into turn 1, and all of a sudden you're running on the podium. So I don't know. It's definitely a very interesting race, to say the least. But right now, up towards the top, Fabian Krebs. Everything he's tried so far has not gotten Partez away from him any sooner. In fact, he's only been a couple of hundredths faster, but it's been a Constantina back and forth between both of them. Completely misses his break point. Partez, the driver from Poland, wants to get a piece of it. But Krebs, I think, may have had a deliberate late break because he got so much power out of the exit that he was able to reopen that gap to 4/10. Behind, there's Asmar, Ippolito into the top 4, and then there's a pretty significant 2-second gap down to Cuthbert. Very difficult to overcome, especially with these drivers. But your pole sitter, Asmar, right now is sitting P3. After the start, he got overtaken by the number 88 of Julian into that first turn. And then also dropped a spot to Partez. But still within striking distance of P1 should things go a little bit crazy. Karen's still having to deal with Lemos. I mean, for Karen's at the very least, just keep him behind. But that's, well, all you really need to do for this race is just keep those guys behind, and you'll be sitting pretty by the end of it all. I thought for a moment Julian got another bit out of shape, but no, it is just his connection having a problem. Understandable. From Mexico to the EU is quite a distance, and I guarantee I'd probably having similar issues if I were connected to the server in such capacity, but thankfully I don't. But again, 13th for him. Such a disappointing race. But we'll see how much he can actually recover by the end of it. Timoteo, best efforts. Brun has just latched onto the back of the Lamborghini. Hasn't let him go. Has no reason to. Last lap for the German, a 48.7 compared to a 49.0. But the big story is, well, the man in 17th position. That's Finn Fedke, who got a 48.1, which is a massive amount of time to take out of the leaders. Brun, I think for a moment, wanted to go around the outside, but, well, the driver was not going to be there. Switches to the inside. But the distance far too great for a move. As we look back up the grid. Oh, Partez. Huge slide there. But is able to lock it down. Stays P2. Again, his last lap was only a couple of hundredths slower. You wonder maybe how much closer he would have been if he didn't have that slide. Right now, that gap 0.3 of a second across the line. And once again, oh, it's 6 hundredths this time. So he has lost a little bit of time because of that slip. But for the most part, the gap is maintained. Cairns has to go defensive into turn number 1. This Portuguese driver lines up a shot down the inside, but things just getting cut off. Cairns from Scotland remains position number 6. You see his teammate there for just a moment, Cuthbert, getting away. So the gap between those two has opened up quite a lot over these last few laps. And Lemos on the rear bumper to a couple of car lengths back. Oh, you can see how much more confident he is, though. That might be the spot. That may be his ace in the hole. Because you saw how much time he gained. Cairns maybe not as confident through the corner. And you also have to keep in mind how much different their setups are. Even in the same car, drivers are going to handle them very differently. That gap again opens back up. Partez a lot closer. Couple of tenths. Did Krebs have some error? So we head through the penultimate corner. Partez trying to keep it close, trying to manage the throttle as best he can. And he is so much closer. You wonder maybe, does that slipstream come into effect? Williams picks up a drive-through for track limits. Same with the Teo. So those have 3 laps to be sorted out. Unless you want to get disqualified. Krebs, though, a 45.2 compared to a 44.95 from Partez. So the pace is absolutely there. Asmar is scared off of his line as Ippolito tries to make a move down the inside, but the drive there for the McLaren keeps him ahead. For how long does that trend continue? Terry Williams right now has some damage, so he'll be going into the pits to serve this this drive-through penalty. One thing I read about on Reddit, surprisingly, was looking at the pit lane, and you see that orange barrier on the right side of the screen. Depending on the track, that'll be the absolute latest that you can hit the brake. So I thought that was really neat. So if you've ever wondered how to pit perfectly, look for those orange barriers on the side. That is, again, the absolute last place, apparently, that you can brake before you have the possibility of catching a penalty for speeding. But we rejoin Asmar in P3. You can see Partez has pulled away. Krebs as well, but not as much. So 2 and 3, or 1 and 2, and 3 and 4 still currently being discussed. We'll see where Oteo comes out in 19th position. And there's Williams just up ahead in 18th. So, yeah, for those guys, it's probably going to be over and out for their races. Cairns as well, 6th and 7th. Still scrapping over that final spot by the checkered flag. Again, both McLaren drivers. Krebs still with an advantage per lap over Partez. And Asmar does have a couple of hundredths over his last lap. And then Cairns, he's about a 10th down on Lemos. So it looks like the Portuguese driver does have the pace, but just when he finds it, there's well, there's just not enough road there. It has to back out. So I want to see through these next 2 corners. This here is taken flat by both, but how much does Bruno actually gain as we head uphill? Yeah, you just look at the launch he gets, but the problem is he's not really close enough. There's no angle and even just no road for him to actually take advantage of that speed difference. And it's been like this lap after lap after lap. He just cannot get around Cairns as they continue to be just a couple of tenths between each other. But if you're Cairns, that's a good thing, because at the very least, well, you're going to be hopefully having a certain position by the end of the race. And it's always frustrating being behind, and you can just never ever seem to get that little bit of speed you need. Check back very quickly. We just had Victor Brun get overtaken there by I believe that's Lou. So that is maybe a called overtake, asking to be let through, and hopefully that was the case. Right now, Cairns, very defensive line on the inside, a 46.43 for him. Lemos, a 46.25. So even faster now. The Portuguese driver, a little bit of a switchback, and now he is going to start the charge. You can just see Cairns out the window there. He does have the inside line, and it's going to be forced on through. 2 McLarens side by side, almost making contact. But Cairns fighting back. The Scottish spirit flows through him and holds on to position 6 for another lap. But Lemos knows this is the spot where he gets so much speed, but he just has to back out far too close for an overtake to be a viable option. But what a nice little scrap there from both of them. Cairns runs wide, but manages to hold it back down. Not going to startle him at all. Lemos, very, very aggressive on these corners. Everything he can to try to get around so far has been shut down. And thus the cycle repeats anew. We check back in with the race leader, or sorry, the pole sitter down in position number 3, Simone Ippolito. Ippolito's last lap of 45.01. Asmar a 44.81, so the pace definitely there. Oh, Partez just put in a lap that was 0.3 quicker than the race leader, Fabian Krebs. I thought for a moment he had a chance to go down the inside. I promise that one day I will learn how to say Partez's first name, but for right now, I'm just going to stick with the last name because that's easier to say. I'm sure I'll get like a DM from him. It's like, oh, it's pronounced like this. And I'll go, oh, that doesn't make sense. But one of these days I will, because for as long as I've been broadcasting and for as long as he's been in the OOR, I've always called him by Partez. Everyone else gets a first name for the most part, except for him. And I feel like I should be doing him a nice service and making that that a bit possible. But anyways, we check back in. Victor Brunn with Jonathan Salling right now, position 15th, being debated over, and then just behind there's Fedka and Williams. I thought Williams for a moment had a run down the inside. It was not the case. Cairns, God, still with Lemos, and you wonder who has to be getting more psychological damage lap after lap. Is it Cairns having to see that McLaren in his rearview mirror, or is it Lemos that despite everything, he has not been able to get around? Guess if you're Lemos, well, looks like a killer bee out there. So hopefully trying to find a way to sting his fellow racer off the line and grab the position. Almost had it a couple laps ago, but it just was not what he was looking for. As Cairns fought back, didn't let it go that easily. And despite Partez getting that 0.3 improvement over Krebs, he is now he is just over 0.4 behind on that last lap. So that gap really just not going in either driver's favor. And Ippolito here behind Asmar still 44.47 for the Italian, a 44.72 for the Italian, a 44.74 for the number 44. So, ooh, depending on how much this goes back and forth, and depending on when depending on when that gap closes up and just how close Ippolito is, could be going for a move. Oh, I think he looked down the inside, but decided better of it. He can just push to the outside. Ippolito, I think, maybe just glanced on the inside to see what was there. Cairns, hold on, and Lemos runs extremely wide. That's going to invite Christian Dorn into the fray right now. This is the closest he's been all day to these two leading drivers, or to these two running drivers, rather. I was keeping an eye on those lap times, just seeing him push little bits each time, and that wide line from the Portuguese driver has given him so much more to actually work with, but has not converted it. But at the very least, being a significantly faster per lap than those ahead is great news. Last lap for Cairns was a 45.53, and then a 45.420 for Lemos. Dorn, a 44.87. If he keeps the trend up like he has been, could he be doing it? But right now, he has lost so much time. So I don't know if that is quite the case. Williams with that was Fedka, so those two just swap positions. Fedka goes down to 18th, Williams up to 17th. So a good bit of driving. Krebs, ooh, that looked really close there for a second. I thought Partez might have had the move on there, but was not the case. Able to open that gap right back up. Let's go with Ippolito through this uphand or uphill left-hander. Doesn't get as much of an exit compared to his competitor. But through some of these corners, I think he's just a little bit more brave than one would expect. Lemos has to deal with Christian Dorn. Lemos having some trouble that pushes him far back from Cairns. Dorn almost taking advantage of that. And Dorn, despite being amateur class, he is running with some pretty high caliber times right now. You wonder, is there a promotion on the horizon for the German driver? I certainly would think so, but that is not up for me to decide. Oh, it's slow there for Asmar. That does invite Ippolito into the mix, but I think that was because of a back marker. I don't think that was because of an error. Still, Ippolito, everything he's got right now. Just about 3.5 minutes to go here in the race. Barthez with that fastest lap, though, a 44.15 is 11 hundredths faster than Krebs' best time. Krebs, again, going another 3/10 quicker. And Jonathan Salling, we've only seen him when it's coming to just another car being there, but right now, Terry Williams on a bit of a charge. After his early race blunder, again, you can see all that damage, has recovered quite nicely, looks to the inside. There's Zateo going very wide right now. And just behind them is the Ferrari there of Fedka. Through the chicane, all four of these drivers go. You can see just how big these gaps are. Williams, though, looking down the inside, decides better of it. Wants to back out, but this little four-way fight for position 15, you wonder how things are going to go. Teo gets a pretty good run, but lets way off the throttle and just slowly falls away into position. Fedka doesn't let that one slide as easily as he looks to the inside of Williams, then just goes right back to where he was before. Doesn't want to go for anything just yet. Still plenty of times. There's Cairns. There's Lemos down the inside. And the move for the Portuguese driver is finally done and dusted. You wonder how long that took to come along. Well, let's ride on board with the number 9 and see just how he picked up position 6. So through the chicane, he gets a much better exit. And then he has the inside line through the next corner and gets the power down and is just barely able to slip ahead. Lemos, lap after lap after lap, finally gets the job done. And for Ryan Cuthbert, he finds himself in a position that his teammate has not been in, and that is a shot at an overtake right now as he pulls in very close to Ippolito. As Ippolito has not closed up on Asmar. Last lap, though, Ippolito in the 46s. Asmar barely out of the 46s, and Cuthbert well into the 45s. And Krebs getting a little bit shaky. He's starting to get into a bit of trouble right now. Barthez only a couple of tenths back right now. That last lap was 4 tenths in the Polish driver's favor. Looks to the inside for a moment. I thought there would have been something, but the problem is that door bolted shut. Call upon whatever powers you may want, because you are going to need some heavenly power to get through the door. Because Krebs, a master locksmith, and he knows how to keep things locked down as he remains in position number 1 despite the constant pressure from the driver behind. But could this be the move for Barthez? Looks to the inside, then has to go back to the outside because that line on the inside is covered off completely. Maybe a little bit of a switchback. No, it's not. Equal exit for both of these drivers into the penultimate corner on the brakes. Got to be careful going through. It's very easy to spin out, but both of these drivers managing. Krebs maybe a little bit too sideways for his liking. Barthez trying to switch up the lines a bit, seeing where he can gain the time, but he is just sliding all over the place. That could have been his last chance. A final lap coming out here. He'll have one more shot at this. If only he had stuck to a line. You wonder, could that top spot have switched hands? This pack of 3 right now, this is where we also want to keep an eye on. Asmar, Ippolito, and Cuthbert all vying for a spot on the podium, but at the very least, all 3 of these guys into the top 5 by the checkered flag. Ryan Cuthbert is Bruno Lemos is a good way back from Cuthbert and has absolutely pulled out a massive gap over Cairns. since he's gotten around, you think there it is, the cork in the bottle has been removed. But at how, or, you know, it does it get anything more? I don't know. Probably not, unless Cairns decides that he wants to, well, do something a little bit questionable. And you can see just up ahead, there's Williams in the Ferrari, is going to be getting blue flagged, but maybe they all don't catch up in time. Ippolito, man, he is just pushing this thing, trying to get away from Cuthbert, trying to close it on Asmore, trying to get onto the podium. It's going to be quite a monumental task as we get into the last 30-some-odd seconds of the race. But ladies and gentlemen, Fabian Krebs just has a couple more corners to go if he wants to win this race. There's Oteo. Julian picks up a drive-through right at the end of this race. He's not going to be able to serve it, I don't think, because that is going to apply. He's going to cross the line before he gets to the entirety of pit lane. But Krebs, despite everything that Partez threw at him, is able to maintain position number 1. And Partez goes P2. There's Phillips. Phillips runs out of fuel. I think he's out of gas. And he's just going to stop onto the top 3, though. Asmar holding off Ippolito and Cuthbert. Just barely. Lemos gets around Cairns. Look at the gap between the two of them. Just about 2 seconds by the end of it all. Christian Dorn makes it position number 8. Zertsky, it's a driver we did not look at all too much this evening, does come home a very nice position number 9. There's Florindo, who makes it into the top 10. Naderpel from the Netherlands just misses out on the top 10 party, but at the very least we'll take bragging rights for the top, or the bottom 10%, or the bottom 10 driver, excuse me, pulling into the pit lane. But the problem is he will cross the line plus 30 seconds. We'll see who actually takes advantage of that. Look at Daniel Ratchfell's car. That hood is propped up. I don't think he's actually close enough. I think this penalty may be completely negated, because the gap to the 101 may be far too much. And then there's Williams crossing the line. Phillips, of course, we saw. Fedka, Lewis to get around, which is the McLaren right there. Brun and Salling into the pit lane. You wonder what happened. Maybe they ran out of fuel. Who knows? But around the final corner, Daniel Rutschfeld goes. Does he gain an extra position across the line? No, he doesn't. 40.6 seconds back. So despite the 30-second penalty applied to Julian, it doesn't matter. He holds on to position 12, and Timoteo, debutant here in the Sprint Series, does come home position 14, and the game will of course wait for Brun and Salling to make it around, even though they won't. Oh, hold on. I think I just saw the Audi there hop a little bit. No, the tire's still twitching. I don't know how well you can see it, but he's still sitting. Oh, they both get down off the jacks. Do they go around? I don't think so. But 30 minutes, man, that was quite the exciting race. All the chaos there at the start, making things very difficult. Drivers getting knocked around, of course, sort of the big one there. The driver in 12th position, the 88 of Alan Julian, is from second to first, and then something happening and going all the way down. Again, if it was contact, of course, the stewards will be looking at it. If it was something else, if it was driver error, well, that doesn't really need to be looked at outside of the driver themselves. But that is the race over. And we'll see, well, when this session finally turns over. There it is. Bada bing, bada boom. And we go into the next bit of qualifying, of course. 2 races here, both 30 minutes. I don't think we are going to be doing reverse grid order, which for some is a-okay. It always adds a little bit of suspense. For those that are, I'll say, new to OOR, some seasons ago we would have these super sprints where we'd have 2 races, and that first race would, well, have those top 12 drivers not go out onto circuit, but what we would do is we'd actually reverse grid that. So if you finished first, you'd be starting 12th, second was 11th, third was 10th, so on and so on. Everybody else from 13th and beyond, they would go out and do their qualifying, and that would kind of set the stage for the next race. But That is not going to be the case. Everybody's going back out. Another 30 minutes on the clock. And while we wait for these drivers, of course, to get around the circuit and start those flying laps, ladies and gentlemen, a quick shout out, of course, to Simrigs for sponsoring Season 14 of the Sprint Series. We've had these guys now for a couple of seasons, and I gotta say, having them on board has been very, very nice out of Melbourne, Australia. If you're looking to upgrade your rig, maybe you had a couple of goodies, or maybe you had a birthday coming up, maybe it's an anniversary, you want to get somebody something nice, well, Simrigs has got you covered, Australia and New Zealand. And those outside of those lovely borders, such as myself and maybe some of you at home, well, if you send them an email, they'd be more than happy to send some goodies your way, of course, with proper payment. And if you are one of our Patreon members, you guys are getting 5% off your in-store purchases, so please take advantage of that. Sim racing equipment, not cheap by any means. I can tell you that for a fact. My wheel costs a little bit too much. But again, thank you to Simrigs for sponsoring yet another season of the Sprint Series, and we hope to see them back again in the future. Right now, it is Alan Julian, who is going to be starting us off at the Hungaroring for his flying lap. So we'll stay on board with him, see where he comes out, or where he can at least put that first pin. As he is getting around the circuit again. He did start position 2 in that last race, but ended up down in 12th. So he's looking to maybe grab pole position so he can just get away and carry on from there. That is going to be a task easier said than done. That Porsche is pretty settled in. He's got the setup right where he wants it. He's got exactly what he needs. I don't think there is going to be much of anything in terms of change for a lot of these drivers. The conditions the same as they were before. The track optimum this time, it was fast the last time around. So drivers were not getting as much speed or as much pace as they would have liked. But with everything being laid down, well, we'll see how much faster we can go. I do agree with Notbone. It is some equipment is maybe a little too much, but well, that'll happen. Anyways, out of that final corner, the Mexican goes. What is the pole time going to be for right now? It's a 44.29. So that is the target everybody's got to beat. Partez decides to go second overall. Half a second back. A 44.79 is what he wants. There is still plenty of time to make your mark. Krebs goes up into P3. Dorn's P4. Krebs goes the exact same as Partez, both putting in a 44.79.7. Then Dorn was 0.6 back. We'll check on Terry Williams. Does cross the line, position number 6 with that 47.88. Anybody else on a flying lap? I believe Ryan Cuthbert is. So we'll see where he decides to start his campaign. It's going to be third position with a 44.76. Asmar goes P2, just under a 10th behind your pole sitter. Cairns up into P3, 3.5 back from position number 1. We've only had 8 drivers have a valid lap, or at the very least have gotten their out lap out of the way and got a flying lap done. Everybody else has yet to do that. Ooh, excuse me, has yet to do that. As Ricky Lou makes it position 8 right now. 46.08 for him. Goes to 9th because Naderpel has something to say about that with a 45.98. So right now Terry Williams is the driver kind of at the bottom. Not where you want to be. Bruno Lemos out onto the track very, very late. He is, you can see, getting a little bit of temperature in those tires, weaving side to side. See where he comes out. This is his out lap. So it's not like he is going to be setting the world ablaze, especially because if we switch over to... Oh, I could have sworn we had one before. Oh, yeah, you can see there in the top left corner, currently 8.5 minutes on the timer. So he has definitely been sitting in the pits, maybe just letting The setup gets swapped around a little bit, seeing what the pace of the other drivers are. Right now, Partez in P1, a 44.04. Do we see someone go into the 43s? If it's going to be anybody, it could be this man right here. By the time he comes back around, but he right now is not running any faster than he was before. Florindo, who is down in 18th, has not set a time, crosses the line, goes into the top 10 with a 45.89. It's a good bit of driving from him. Rochfeld into the 9th position, a 44.93. So he's only about a 10th back, or less than a 10th back. He's about 400ths behind Florindo. So we'll see how much more time he can gain by the end of this lap. Does he overtake? Does he get overtaken? That's the big question. Victor Brun into position 14th. The Danish driver, 48.81 for himself. Charles Phillips has just started a flying lap, so we'll keep an eye on that. Izertskis, another driver who looks like he had a bit of an off somewhere. The time doesn't count, but it is going to count this time around. 46.23 up into P12 for himself. And everybody else currently doing their own thing right now. Partez, he's got a massive run, a 43.85 there for the Polish driver. That's a huge statement. Krebs, a 44.14, only enough for P2, but is 3/10 behind your pole sitter. We check in. Asmar right now down into 6th position, so even after that pole position in the first race, he has not had as much success. Crosses the line, does go P3, however. 2 thousandths around Cuthbert is what he is going to be working with in this first little bit, or in this little bit of qualifying, this space. Right now, Terry Williams is on an improvement. How much further up the grid does he go? Just a spot around Ateo is 600ths quicker than the German's time. And Charles Phillips has to respond, of course, with a 47.28 of his own. But these times really starting to come in for these drivers. Those tires, those brakes up to temperature tires with the tire pressures as well, really getting in there. But the improvements not really coming out all too much. The only person right now, Fabian Krebs, just about a 10th up. But he is going to need 3/10 if he wants to take pole position. And if it would be exactly 3/10, well, it would be, well, it'd be pretty darn close. There's a little more than 3/10, so yeah, he's got some work to do. He had actually had a 3/10 in that that second to last corner, but he just lost it. Crosses the line, however. It's going to be a 44.215, so he's running pretty close to his best right now. Christian Dorn down into position number 8. Has not had the best string of laps here. Crosses the line, does go faster, but well, it doesn't really matter. He doesn't move anywhere. Finn Fedke from Germany, again, one of those newer drivers, has a 51.45, or his current best, of course, not indicative of his true pace. Crosses the line from 17th. He goes to 16th, just around Brun, with that 47.99. So the Danish driver having some problems selling, just getting out of the pits now. And Simone Ippolito, finally, after almost 13 minutes in the pit lane, he backs off. You can see, yep, just 13 minutes, so this will be a flying lap for him. After a good bit of time, you can see everybody spread out across the track. Always nice to have those gaps there. Bruno Lemos in 12th. Does have an improvement, but he is going to need a lot of time, and he actually finds a huge chunk of time. A 44.44, enough for position number 7 for the Portuguese driver in the number 9. Well, I was talking about improvements. He told me to shut my face and does exactly that. Ryan Cuthbert crosses the line. It's P2 for the Scotsman. 44.03. Only one driver so far has gotten into the 43s, and unfortunately nobody has beat him since. But the final minute 18 ticks away. For some of these drivers, they have one more lap coming up. For others, well, They're either on their final lap or they're far enough ahead to where they're going to have one more lap. By the time they get back around, Christian Dorn will be starting his final run of the Hungaroring here in qualifying number 2. Crosses the line from 9th. He stays, but with a 44.92. So he does improve, does open the gap up to Florindo, who does have to find quite a lot of space if he wants to get that position 9. He's got to find just about 8/10. And so far this lap has not proven it to be so easy. Charles Phillips down in 15th position, but he's got a huge bit of improvement. This is easily going to be a 45, but how far up the grid could he try for position number 10? No, he's just going to miss it. And he is going to pull out of the lap. He just misses out on position 10 by 1/10 of a second to Florindo. That is going to be quite a hard pill to swallow for him. Timoteo right now, 6/10 is the improvement. This will definitely put him into the 46s. Could he take his Zertskis? I don't think so. But even if he does, the problem is, no, he doesn't. So he goes around Terry Williams. I was about to say, the thing is, the number 45 is on a huge bit of a huge run right now. It was about 7/10. Now it's about half a second. So even if he did get around, well, it wasn't going to stand for quite too long. But does his Zertskis go higher than 15th? He goes 12th. And pushes Charles Phillips down another spot. 55 thousandths between himself and the Portuguese driver of Florindo, who has parked it up. And I think that should be doing it. The only drivers out on track at the moment who have a valid lap going is, well, I was about to say Zerskis. That's not the question. Or that's not possible. Ippolito in 9th. And it's Lemos, Julian, and Asmar, who is a 10th back. So we'll see where he ends up, if he can find a couple of extra tenths by the end of it, but I'm not too certain. It would have to be right here on exit, but well, with that growing to 2/10, I'm not certain that's going to be the case. He will cross the line. He is going to be starting position number 4, but the big problem right now is this man right here has a couple of tenths under his belt. He could be redeeming by the time he gets back to the start-finish line. Comes around the penultimate corner, then one more. He's got 2/10. Now he's got 3/10. It's skipping back and forth between that. Could this be a 43? If he does, that shoot him right up to the front row of the grid. It does, but it's not. It's 44.005. Not quite James Bond, but it's still enough to join Partez on the front row of the grid. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a great little bit of driving there right at the end of the race. Or right at the end of qualifying, rather. So the Mexican driver lines up once again. Position number 2 on the grid. And for the last time, we are going to be taking a little bit of a grid walk. It's always nice to see liveries. Of course, we saw them before earlier, but why not look at them again? They've been rearranged. They've been changed. So let's see just how much difference these positions are going to make in the next 30 minutes. But again, Partez is on pole. Julian right at the end there. So close to a 43. If he had just an extra 6 thousandths attached to his time, that would have been just enough to sneak under that barrier. But, well, wasn't meant to be this time around. It's Cuthbert and Krebs on that second row of the grid. Cuthbert, again, not too unfamiliar with being this far up the grid, so he'll be looking to see if he can maybe get around the number 88 by the end of the race, but that will be easier said than done, as all things. Krebs as well. Asmar from pole position in race number 1 to 5th spot. He'll have to do a lot of work if he wants to get back up to the top. And then it's Cairns, Lemos, Naderpal, Ippolito, and Dorn that round out the top 10. Starting off in 11th, it was Florindo, who just misses out on 10th position. Izertskis was the driver who put that white Porsche there of Charles Phillips down just another spot. Phillips missing out by a 10th, but now he missed out by a little bit more by the end of it all. Rutschfeld, of course, that new driver here in the OR, his first race, finds him position 14 for race number 2. In 15th position, Ricky Liu right now, looking to make amends from that first race. Had a huge accident at the start And that was pretty much his race. Over, under, down, and out. So hopefully maybe starting a little bit further back will be better. But of course, only time will tell. Timoteo lines up on that 8th row of the grid next to the Hong Kong driver. And then it's Williams, Fedka, Brune, and Salling who round out your grid. Brune quite a ways down. I don't think Salling got a lap in. I think he did. If he did, it would have been quite a long ways off the pace. But that sets us up for another 30 minutes of action. Round 2 of the Simrigs Sprint Series, and the second round for tonight's festivities from the Hungaroring. Of course, a quick shout out to Simrigs for sponsoring this season of the Sprint Series. I've already talked about them enough. You know what they do. You know what they're here for. Australia, New Zealand, all of that fun stuff. They're gonna get you covered down there. And if you're outside of that, well, email's all you need. 5% off if you're a Patreon member. You guys are awesome. But again, thank you to Simrigs for sponsoring another season of the sprint race on track. Drivers have pulled away, but it is Partez looking to really make this a sprint. Find 30 minutes of time that he can hold on to the lead for and get to the checkered flag first. But of course, this man right here, another driver who has to avenge himself from the previous race. And we'll see what he does, if he can. So yeah, some pretty heavy-hitting drivers who got into this race up top especially. And you wonder if things are going to go differently. And if they do, how much differently do they actually go? Of course, Partez, not a driver to be taken lightly. Even with the Pro-Am classification, has shown that he is very much more than just a Pro-Am driver these last few seasons. Florindo, new fresh face here in European Sprint, lines up 11th on the grid, looking to continue his impressive start to the season. But if he wants that top 10, well, it's going to be those guys just up ahead of him. Ippolito and Dorn stand in his way. Both of those guys could be ending up position 10 for him at the end of the race, but we line up double file. And we look to have a turn of fate for race number 2 here at the Hungaroring. Another 30 minutes on the clock. And we'll see just who has it in them to make it count. Asmar, 5th position. Partez first. So there has been a change from that first round of qualifying. We'll see what can happen. Of course, the medical helicopter on standby in case we have any sort of opening lap shenanigans that we saw before. But it's Partez, Julian, Cuthbert, Krebs, Asmar, Cairns, Lemos, Naderpal, Dorn, and Ippolito, your top 10. Florindo, Azerski, Zrechfeld, Phillips, Lou, Oteo, Williams, Fedka, Brune, and Salling rounding out that bottom 10. But ladies and gentlemen, we cross the start-finish line. It's green, 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 and it's an amazing start there for both Partez and Julian as we go down into turn number 1. Just about 3 wide there in the background for Krebs, Cuthbert, and Asmar. As we head into turn number 1, it's going to be a very late lunge on the brakes there for the 5th position driver as he goes into the Porsche, but using that McLaren on the, or using Cuthbert there on the outside for a bit of a change as he is down in 6th position. And right now there is going to be Lemos trying to get not just one, but both of the Bra Racing drivers into corners. He does manage to get one and slots in between. And if I had to bet on it, it's got to be Cairns in front. And are we going to be seeing a change or see a repeat of last time? Right now, Cuthbert does have a run. Tries to go around the outside, but I do not think that's going to work at all, my friend, as he just has to sit behind. There's Ippolito in the corrupted Porsche as he is looking for a bit of pace as we head into the chicane. We look back up ahead. Fabian Krebs right now having a little bit of trouble as Asmar is going to be taking advantage of this. Through the left-hander he goes. That space is his, but the German has something to say about it. Retaliates, goes back down the inside and holds on to this spot. Look at this little group forming right now in for 4th position. It's going to be Krebs, Asmar, Cairns, Lemos, and it looks like Cuthbert also just barely getting into the mix there. As we head down, Lemos right now is all over the tail there of the 22 of Cairns. but he just has to back out of it. We gaze out the back window. There's Cuthbert. He's going to try to make a move, stick around the outside, but is there going to be enough of a drive? No, there isn't. That Ferrari can't do much of anything. Ippolito invites himself to the party. I'm sure he's not going to care whether or not he has an invite, because this is OOR. He knows what he's doing. This is the Sprint Series. You don't need an invite. You just got to have perfect timing, perfect positioning, and all those beautiful things that make the racing exactly what it is. But after lap 1, ladies and gentlemen, Partes holds on to the lead, half a second ahead of position number 2. Lemos looking down the inside, but that door, despite being open, he has to walk up the driveway, and for him, that's going to be a bit of a difficult thing to do. Florindo under attack right now. There's Zerski's on the inside, or sorry, on the outside rather. He's going to have to go the long way around as a bit of a switchback, but gets held up. That does give Oteo a chance to get in on this as well, and he too has to back out. He was right on the inside, really just throwing this Lamborghini every single which way. There's Rochfeld Bruin as well, and then just beyond that, it's Saling, Fedka, Williams, and Lou in the pit lane. Not certain what that is all about. That is not how you want to start your second race. Hopefully things are going good. It could be technical problems, could be something else entirely. We don't know. But at the very least, we hope that things are going well over there. But this race, some crazy lunges, but nothing disastrous that we saw before, thankfully. Always a massive positive. But these drivers have learned a bit from race number 1 and have decided to maybe calm the nerves a little bit, wait till the end of the race to actually go for something. Ryan Cuthbert, man, he is just having the time of his life right now. There's a huge dive down the inside from Ippolito later on the brakes, and the Porsche decides that he's had enough of this guy's problems, goes into position number 7. A yellow flag out on track. It's the 37 of Lou. He is definitely having some problems right now. Not certain what's going on. But back into the pits once more. And you can see Ippolito at the moment is going for more right now. He's got a long way to go, though, if he wants to catch up to Lemos. But if the pace is anything to be believed, we could be seeing that happen. We're going to join Terry Williams right now in position 18 as he is... Oh, I thought for a moment was going to be looking down the inside of Saling, but not close enough in any way, shape, or form to actually make a move. And behind him is Fedka. Oh, very loose over the inside. Does that invite the Ferrari to this position? Up the hill we go. Everybody gets it cleanly. All the Beamer there going over the grass, and our poor pylon pal punted post-ceremoniously to another postal code. But he will carry on much the same as these drivers, but things very much just settling down right away. And Julian picks up a drive-through. You can't be picking up a drive-through this early. He's having so many problems right now. That Porsche not wanting to cooperate. Now, he does have 3 laps to serve the drive-through. But he's going to stay out. Not going to go for much of anything. On board with Krebs. Not close enough for that slipstream to take effect. So he just stays about half a second behind. And down the inside, a very late lunge there from Asmar, but Krebs having none of it. Easily sidesteps his opponent, regains position number 3. It was a lovely attempt there, of course, from the number 44, but was not meant to be. And that does give Cairns a chance to gain some ground. Same with Lemos. Lemos does have fastest lap with that 44.41. So that is how it's going to go for him. We check back Charles Phillips with, well, that is Florindo, who does try to get the position back. Whoa, that's going to be a bit of an interesting... Whoa, hold on. Charles Phillips off the track. Excuse me. Hold on. What is going on here? We're going to go overhead, see what happens. Croatia... Oh, he gets a bump. He gets 1 bump, gets 2 bumps. That's why Azerski's sort of skirted around the outside. And that's why Oteo had to sort of slam on the brakes a little bit. So that most likely will be a penalty, hopefully handed out before the end of the race. If it was deemed as a potentially not safe for work move. There's Salling right now, who is having some problems. Gets down into position 18, and again for Lou, just another... not certain what happened. He's got some damage there on the car, and unfortunately that is his race over and done with. Unfortunate, but all of these drivers right now in this line are gaining a position because Julian goes into the pit lane. So we'll see where he comes out. But Lemos is getting a little bit impatient. He's gotten around one Brawl Racing driver. What's stopping him from getting around the second? Again, he did it to Cairns in those last couple of laps in race number 1. But it's going to be maybe a long while before we see that. Maybe he does the exact same, just stays there and, well, at the last possible second, pounces at the opportunity. We are going to ride on board, though. And there is Ippolito behind, so we'll just keep him in the back of our head. But for right now, continues on. Ippolito as well, trying to find the same sort of pace he had before on Cuthbert. That has not been the case. But these 4 drivers right now, 5 drivers if you want to put Asmar into this, possibly forming up for a 5-way fight for position number 3, but that is going to require some pretty interesting driving across the board. And then just up ahead is Krebs, who has fallen quite a ways off the pace. Partez, 2.7 seconds clear, and that is a gap that he is more than happy to work with, because that is going to possibly grow a little bit each time. A 44.24 is going to gift him fastest lap, and Krebs put into 44.28.5, which is 400ths behind, still very slow comparatively. But right now Salling does have Julian there, who has come out in position number 16, so way down the grid from 2nd to 16th. It's just deja vu. It's the same thing happening again and again, it looks like. But down the front straight we go. Both of these German manufacturers, everything they've got under the hood. The Mexican driver is ahead, and he will have, actually not as much of an advantage as it looked into turn number 1, but the Swede backs out, doesn't want to go for it, and that will be 15th. Gifted over. Simone Ippolito, he's got quite the predicament. He's in the middle of 2 Scotsmen. I don't know how good the sandwiches are over there, but I'm going to assume they must be pretty gosh darn tasty. But he wants Cairns. He was extremely close before. What's stopping him from doing it again? I just realized I mixed up Lemos and Cairns in terms of getting around the Brawl Racing drivers. I apologize. But this could also be both Brawl Racing drivers falling to one driver. Of course, those teammates in different cars. It's the McLaren for Cairns, the Ferrari for Cuthbert. And right now, Ippolito has a pretty good exit. As I say that, it appears as though Cairns decides that he is going to find the boost button and hits just that. So we head down the front straight once more, hanging on to 5th position. Race number 2 here has just ticked under 20 minutes, so the first third has gotten away from us. But still plenty of time for moves to be made. Of course, these shorter races, no mandatory stops, so these drivers really will tune the cars for such the case compared to a 60 or a 70-minute race. Check back, Charles Phillips has gone around Rochfeld down into turn number 1. So another position gained for the Croatian up to 12th. Can he catch up to Florindo Well, if he does, he has to overcome quite the deficit by the end of the race. Is it possible maybe Florindo's last lap was a 45.84, Phillips was a 44 or 46.41. I don't know if that's indicative of true pace. Hopefully it's not, and if it is, well, that's going to be an impossible gap to overcome. Timoteo holds on right now to position number 10. He's got to do it for 18 more minutes, probably closer to 19 when you account for that that final lap, of course. But Florindo really getting some runs out of these exits. Looking to the inside, just saying that he's there, that the possibility of a dive could be on the horizon. Everything he's got, trying to find just that little advantage, wherever it may be. If he can find one singular advantage and snowball that, then he's going to gain the position. Stays on the inside, but Oteo, well, that's not going to do anything to him. He's just going to power it way to the outside. Probably pick up some warning. Hopefully not, but stays ahead. We check back up right now. This pack, this 3-pack, 4-pack, because Asma right now has gotten away. As we look, yeah, he's pulled away a little bit from Lemos. Not as much as one would expect, but at the very least, if he can gain just a couple of hundreds, maybe a couple thousands here and there, that'll be enough to keep everyone else at bay. But lap after lap, especially at a circuit like the Hungaroring with some of these corners, this chicane especially, we saw it in the F1 race with Logan Sargent spinning out towards the tail end of it. So even the world's best will do it. The corners before, I mean, pretty much every single corner from, I'd say, what, 3 to the chicane, pretty easy to get wrong. These ones especially, I have done it. If you go a little bit too much on the inside and you jump the curb, well, that will spin you out. That's how it went for me one time, and hasn't happened since. But enough about my past here in the OR. We're here with Ryan Cuthbert's present, and hopefully more of his future, as he continues to stick behind Ippolito. And that's the thing when you're behind. Sometimes you start experimenting with different lines, and if it works, it's great. Then you start going with that line, but if it fails completely, well, then you got to go back to the old strategy and fix it from there. We had a yellow flag. That's the 73 of Saling. He's got so much damage. What happens here? Let's take a peek. He just, oh goodness, he just got loose there on exit. And it was Finn Fedka that went into the side of him. So not only is there left side damage, there was that front end damage that we saw. And that is the Swede stricken, but still moving forward. Let's take a look and see if the steering has been affected. I don't think it has. It's a slight bit of input to the right. We'll see what it looks like coming down pit road, though. Yeah, there's just a little bit of steering damage. So that is going to be it for him. He's already at the back end of the grid off of that, and he's going to be sitting there for a good long while. So that race, over and under and out for the 73. Not the way he wanted to have race 2 end, but I guess it's how it's going to be, as there is Florindo, a very adventurous move to the inside, but over those thick sausage curbs will not play out all too well for him. And for Ateo, that's good news. That keeps the guy behind, gives you some breathing room, and you carry on from there. Who hasn't had that sort of luxury is Simone Ippolito. He's lost a bunch of time to Cairns, just about 2 seconds, under 2 seconds rather, to the Scotsman ahead. But Cuthbert, just under 4/10. But even when he gets extremely close, he still cannot take advantage of that. It seems like no matter what, it's not going to be the case. And just up ahead, Cairns on the back of the fellow McLaren. Look at the top 5. Everybody's driving a McLaren except for Partez in the Ferrari. Almost 3 seconds clear of position number 2. There's position 2, and there's position number 1 just going around the corner at the top of the hill. But these 3 lap times, looking at it, it is Cairns that has the advantage. 2/10 over Asmar, but you can see how far back he is. So he's got to be doing consistent 2/10 quicker every single lap. Get around 1, get 2/10 again, and then get around the other. His lap time compared to Lemos was 4/10. So that pace is 100% there. But it's these little small mistakes that's keeping him behind. Ricky joining us, a busted steering wheel. That is not good. Well, thankfully, you do have a week to get it fixed, and I'm sure YouTube will help you. It's unfortunate what happened. But at the very least, you showed up. You raced, you did your best. It was a very unfortunate race for you. I'm wondering if maybe that, what happened at the start, or if it was just fatigue failure from the steering wheel. But hopefully you get that fixed in time for round number 3. Which will be, for those that maybe have forgotten, will be at Kyalami, a circuit that I personally love running at. There's maybe one corner you've got to be wary of, as there's Salin coming out of the pit lane after his spin and then subsequent contact with Fedka and then going head-on into the wall. So he's, at this point, just doing some hot laps, running the clock out, and, oh, going from there. But when's my race? Well, I've got about 4 hours until the NA race. I'll be in the booth with Simone Ippolito. Or, sorry, not Simone Ippolito. What am I talking about? I saw Simone. Oh, Simone going very, very wide on 2 corners. Oh, he has a drive-through. Oh, that's not good at all. So Cuthbert will be parked up behind Cairns, even if Ippolito gets around. It's not going to matter. Who I will be in the booth with, though, however, is this man right here, Charles Phillips. So hopefully we'll be hearing from him. Simon, of course, not joining us here tonight. Had some stuff come up, so he's dealing with that. But, yeah, that's how it goes here in the booth. Ippolito, man, that's second drive-through we've seen. We saw it with the 88, and we're seeing it now with the 14. The Porsche is maybe a little bit cursed with these drive-through penalties. It's not what you want. Charles Ippolito. I'm sure he'll give me flack for that anyways. He's pretty good at that kind of stuff. But Ippolito comes in. He's going to be serving this drive-through penalty. And, of course, has to be careful going into the pits. You don't want to speed, especially with a drive-through, because that's just going to cause a whole heap of problems that none of us want to deal with. And we'll see where he comes out. I don't think he should lose. I don't think he'll go too far back. I mean, obviously from 7th, I'd say at the very least, down to maybe 13th. But Naderpal picks up the position. Azerski's going to be picking up here in just a second. We got to join Timotelo right now. There is a slipstream being given to Florindo, but the inside line belongs to him. Later on the brakes goes the Portuguese driver. Wants to run down around the outside. It's not going to work. There's Simone Ippolito. Comes out in position number 9. So only 2 positions lost for him. And another look for Florindo goes pretty much nowhere. But we've crossed under 10 minutes. It felt like those last 10 minutes just flew by. Jeez. But 9.5 to go here. It's still Partez in the lead. Still with fastest lap of 44.16. So he has just slowly been improving these lap times before it sort of averages out, running in the mid-44s compared to his competition that's running a high 44. So regardless, it's not going to swap hands unless Krebs can find some absolutely wild pace by the end of it. We still sit here with the German, who has gained a couple of tenths or so here and there, and then losing those same couple of tenths. It looks like he's lost it, though. 2 tenths to Florindo. And this is pretty much where the battle is, although this man wants something to say about it. It's Alan Julian from Mexico. After his set of races, I mean, let's look at race number 1. spun out, got massive damage. He started second, spun out early on, got relegated all the way down the grid, came back as best he could, and then in race number 2, gets a drive-through penalty and is in the same position he was before, if memory serves. Looks to the inside, a very late break there, extremely aggressive, but it's going to be a little bit too much for the Porsche to handle as the Aston Martin regains the lead. Rochfeld holding on, but that's not going to be long for this world. Krebs picks up a drive-through penalty at the end. There's a touch there, a little bit of a bump. Push to pass, maybe. Dale Earnhardt would be proud, but the Briton decides to go back. It might not be a push to pass. It might just be a little bit of lag, maybe some net code, who knows. But the 88, this has been one of the toughest overtakes I think he's had so far this evening. Rochfeld, everything he can. A little bit loose there for the Mexican on the inside, a little bit too much. That does open up. And the bridge has to be rebuilt once more. Krebs coming into the pit lane now to serve his drive-through penalty, and look, immediately going down the grid. There goes Cairns. Or sorry, rather it's Cuthbert that goes through. Naderpel, I don't think, will take advantage of this. So when Krebs gets to pit exit, wherever that may be, hopefully very soon, although I could be wrong, we'll check and see where the Dutchman comes out. How much closer is it going to be? There is the German of Krebs. And for this man, the number 40, that's an overtake. That's 6th position. So from 2nd down to 7th goes Krebs. And that is the end of that. We'll see if he can regain some of his former glory by the end of the race. Again, these things, always easy to say, but never easy to actually do. Florindo has gotten away from Oteo quite nicely, but we, again, have to look for these two guys, Rochefeld and Julian right now. It's a great run there from the Porsche. There's no way he makes a stick around the outside. It's not going to be possible. He is on the racing line, side by side, up and over the hill, and Julian around the outside. What is that move? That was expert level stuff right there. World class from the driver from Mexico. Rochefeld, nothing it looked like he could have done. They managed to go up and over the hill, side by side, no contact. And the drive there from the Porsche carries him into position number 14. Even though these guys are quite a ways down the grid, you still get some great overtakes, some great fighting. And that is going to work out beautifully. Now, Terry Williams, you have been lined up. But there is 5 minutes that you have to hold on for position 13. Can you do it? That is going to be the biggest task at hand for the driver in the 305. Trying to go Mr. Worldwide. But we'll see what the concert dictates. We check in right now. Remco Nederpel here with Krebs all over the back of him immediately. You can see the pace difference. Do we see a return? No, we don't. We see Naderpel getting a little bit too much on the inside. Completely smacks the wall. He just bounds over it, and it is a perfect strike on that barrier. And for the Dutch driver, that could be the race over and done with. Unless the damage isn't that great, we're right on board. The steering, surprisingly, despite that seemingly heavy hit, oh goodness. No, that performance is affected. I was about to say the steering looks fine, so everything else should be fine, right? Not the case. Charles Phillips dips to the outside. And Oteo with the hazards on. Wondering what that's all about. Is there a problem there for the 47? Or was he letting him through? That is very interesting. Let's check in the cockpit. I don't know. Maybe he just had a bit of a slip of the fingers. Who knows? But oh, he's having some problems right now. Lines are very weird. Don't know what's going on, but what is going on is Terry Williams for Honiton Motorsport has a pesky little Porsche right behind. And that lap time, it's just about a second. Lap time of 47.31 compared to a 46.0 for the Mexican driver. A second and then some change. That is rapid pace. 2.5 minutes to go. And we do have a couple of battles. One for 11th, one for 13th. You wonder, maybe does Julian get more? It is all over. The curbs there for the German driver Oteo in the 47 Lamborghini. How in the world did you keep that bull from getting out of hand? That was sick. That was way too close for comfort in my book. But for this man, it must just be another day in the office. Because despite that, oh, there's a bit of a bump on the rear and another bump on the rear. He's on the brakes too much and Julian gets caught up in all of it. All four of these guys coming together, and there was also Rochfeld in the Aston Martin who does take advantage of that. It looks like perhaps maybe that braking zone or that braking spot was not what Oteo expected. Does go into the back of Phillips, and he just stood on the brakes way too long. Williams came through, took a little bit of a hit. Julian takes advantage of that. He does get some side damage. You can see the left side of the Porsche all scratched up, but he does use that to his advantage and does take position 12, so gains a couple more spots. Right now, though, we are going to be having another lap after this. Partez has a very sizable gap, just about 7 seconds. So he'll have to go around the Hungaroring one more time. And Naderpel, the inside there for Florindo, down to turn number 1. The Portuguese driver tries to get the traction down, and he does. Moves into position number 9, but for the Dutchman here, he's still in the top 10, but he is not giving it up just yet. Looks to the inside. The space was there, the land was not. And just ahead is Zertsky. So these three McLarens right now could be coming together. Possible battle for 8th position. There's Ippolito just up ahead. Or no, sorry, that's Salling rather. Just up ahead, a back marker car. Does that throw a wrench into the works for anybody? Charles Phillips, very slow there, defending on the inside like crazy. There's the touch there. The Mexican goes down the inside. There's another little bit of contact as we go. There's more contact into the chicane. Both of these Porsches, neither backs down, trading paint, and another bit of contact from these two as we head through the chicane. Charles Phillips, is this defensive driving? Is this aggressive defensive driving? What is it gonna be? You wonder who's in the wrong if either of them are. And Julian, despite that, getting some amazing runs, almost more contact, tries to go around the outside. The space isn't there. It backs him up. Williams could take advantage later on the break. I think it's just sort of the connection that's making it seem like he's getting these huge runs out of the corner. And another bit of late braking into that final corner, but how well of an exit does he get as we head down the front straight once more? On the inside, Charles Phillips sits. It's not close enough for a move, but he's not taking any chances. There's Terry Williams, there's Daniel Rachfeld, all of whom could be taking advantage, gaining a couple positions if these two come together. These two Porsches, it's the final lap of the race, number 2 here for the second week of the Simrigs Sprint Series at the Hungaroring. These guys have been at each other's throats the whole time. There's a side touch. Phillips holds on, but they keep going side by side up the hill into the left-hander. Who's gonna back out? It's still just a millimeter difference between the two of them. It is gonna be the Mexican driver that does decide to back out of that, but the aggression continues as he is all over the 340 right now. As in the meantime, Partez wins the race easily, absolutely no problem. The two Britons in the background are going at it into the chicane. Terry Williams has Rotfeld on the inside, but it's way too much brake for the Aston Martin to handle as he is falling way down the grid, or way down from where he should have been. But we ride on board these two guys. It's going to come down to a possible last corner lunge. The drive is there. Allen to one side, to the other, to the inside. Phillips wants to defend as much as he can into the almost the penultimate corner. They make contact, but still they run side by side, not giving up the inside line to the Croatian driver. Into the penultimate corner, there's contact. Both of them going off the circuit. There's Terry Williams. There's Daniel Rotfeld. There's Azerski. He's running out of fuel on the last lap. What is happening here at the Hungaroring? Phillips, everything he can into the final bit of corners. There's not enough. Allen on the inside, or on the outside. He touches, he spins, and he's gone. He's out. And for the Mexican driver, you can't write this stuff. He loses out and he's gonna go reverse over the finish line. Oh my God, I am out of breath. That was the craziest end of the race I think I've ever seen in the OOR. That was ridiculous. Azerski's, though, out of fuel on the final lap, has to go back to the pits. Dorn will pick up a position. Same with Fetka. Oh my God. Oh man, I was quite literally running out of breath there. I was amazed I kept going for that long. I need a breather right now. That was way too much right at the end. Oh man. Phillips and Julian. Started calling the man by his first name. I got too excited. Whew. That is the sound of my... That's my water right there. I still got water in it, don't worry. Oh, throat is very, very dry. But man, what an end of the race that was. And we just wait for things to get rolled over to the next session, quote unquote, so we can finalize the race. That's the issue with running out on the last lap is, well, the game keeps going. Azerski's will be getting service, but it won't really matter. And of course, his pit box. A little bit farther ahead. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. We have ticked over. The end of the race finally here, and we've got some results to look at. So, in the first race, it was Krebs ahead of Partez, just under 3/4 of a second. Asmar from first to third. And then Ippolito Cuthbert make it into the top 5 for the Pro-Am. So, of course, Krebs and Partez, 1 and 2 overall, 1 and 2 on the Pro-Ams. And then it's Cairns and Phillips, 3 and 4 for the amateur class. It was Dorn, Rochfeld, Williams, and Saling. Great race from all 4 of those guys. And then for the not rated just yet, Azerski's, Florindo, Naderpal, Fedka, Liu, and Brun. All of those guys putting in their greatest efforts. But the race number 2, that is where things get a little bit hectic. Of course, Partez, not only did he miss out on the on the top step, but he gets it done here, winning the race ahead of Asmar by 7 seconds. Lemos 4/10 behind Cairns and Cuthbert, 4th and 5th. And then I got to look down a little bit because we had Williams and Rochfeld getting a couple positions right at the end. Phillips, and then there's Julian down in position 14. Liu, of course, did not make it to the end of the race, having some steering issues, which is unfortunate. In the Pro-Am category, Partez, Cairns, Krebs, and Phillips. Of course, Partez just darted away, didn't look back at all. For the amateurs, it's Williams, Rochfeld, Dorn, and Saling. Williams and Rushville again. Those guys getting some extra goodies right at the end. For silver, it's Florindo, Naderpal, Fedka, Zerskis, Bruin, and Lou again did not make it to the end because of those issues. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for us here tonight. Race 1, the chaos was at the start. For race 2, the chaos was at the end. So those two races complementing each other very, very well. And I'm sure there's going to be some exchanges between drivers at the end. I have just recovered. And one final shout out, of course, to Simrigs for sponsoring Season 14 of the Sprint Series out of Melbourne, Australia. That big old island nation and that little island nation just to the southwest. You guys are going to be all covered. Outside of that, send them an email. Happy to do some business with you. And if you're a Patreon member of this amazing organization, you guys are getting 5% off your in-store purchases. Highly suggest you take advantage of that. Sim racing equipment, not cheap, maybe a little bit too expensive, depending on who you ask. But again, thank you to Simrigs for sponsoring Season 14 of the Sprint Series. Hope to see them again in the future. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for us here tonight. The Hungaroring producing some amazing racing. I'd say better than Formula 1, but that's probably a very commonly held belief. But who knows? So we are not here next week. We are going to be at Kyalami, so there is a week break. So next Thursday, don't expect the sprint series in any region to be running. Not here in EU, not in NA, not in Asia Pacific, none of that. That'll be a little bit of extra time for these drivers to get sorted out. I will be back in about 4 hours' time for the North American Sprint Series. I will be joined, of course, by Charles Phillips in the commentary box, so I'll be asking him about his little contact at the end, unless something happens and he doesn't make it. But in that case, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of myself and everybody here at the OOR, I'd like to thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed your stay. But as always, folks, stay safe, stay beautiful, and we'll see you next time.